Felix, is this to be treated as serious as Parliament is being elevated in Parliament?
Oh, of course, it has to. It's a very serious matter. I am fair-minded, so I like to delineate the issues properly. The issue really is not about a senior police officer, or if you like, a rival of the IGP within the police service, jostling to have him replaced. I'm sure there are people in Joy FM.
Somebody who has how many months to check out of the place?
Yes, he has a few months.
4 months or so.
Yes, I'm sure at Joy FM, there are people who would want to take your place. I'm sure there are people in the MPP who want to replace Richard. So that really is not the problem. The problem is the reasons for wanting to replace the IGP. And if you notice, the senior police officer, and some fingers have pointed to a particular COP, says that it is not really about him. He is willing to sacrifice his ambition for the cause of the MPP. And that if the IGP is replaced and the MPP manages to win the 2024 elections, he will be okay. So the issue for me really is the partisanship that this senior police officer displays in the conversation that he has with the MPP bigwig who was on the other line. That for me is the crux of the matter. Now, this reveals the extent of politicization of the Ghana Police Service. And it's extremely worrying because the police service is in charge of maintaining law and order internally. They are the ones who are responsible for ensuring security and the safety of all parties in elections, as was the case in Asen North and Kumewu recently. So if you have an organization that is politicized to this extent, then even before the election starts, you have a situation where one party has unfair advantage over the other. And I heard Dan Botre say in the insert that you played that an IGP cannot influence the way that elections are conducted. I beg to differ, and I'm surprised that he, as experienced as he is in the political terrain, he will say this. Perhaps he was only trying to, as it were, defend the MPP line. But the point is that if he is the man in charge of security, I mean the IGP, what he does or does not do in the run-up to or during the election is consequential. What happened at Ayo West Wagon? If we had a police service that was determined to ensure that it did not happen, it would not have happened. Because there's no way anybody can tell me that the ragtag team of bandits that came there posing as security operatives, who clearly were armed by the MPP, could have taken on the entire might of the Ghana Police Service if they were intended to stop them from doing so. If you have a determined IGP who wants to enforce the law, as was the case in Asen North, it will happen. Indeed, I'm sure you heard about a few reports of misconduct on the part of some tax. But the policing arrangements were such that they were able to snuff out any danger that occurred in Asen North. That is the kind of situation you will have if you have a professional police service that is dedicated to maintaining law and order, irrespective of whose ox is God. So when Dambotre says that the IGP cannot influence the conduct of an election, it is not true at all. And it points to a certain laxity, on the part of the government and the MPP to want this matter investigated. I was a bit surprised at the flippancy with which the Interior Minister dismissed this claim. He says that the IGP is going nowhere, so for him, the case is closed. That should not be the case. For the avoidance of doubt, it is important that there is some harmony in the leadership of the Ghana Police Service. The last thing you want are contestations that have the tendency to tear apart the service. So if you have high-ranking senior officials who have such a partisan mindset going at the head of the organization, the IGP, in a manner that suggests that they would have been removed if they had their way, the Interior Minister cannot sleep over it. It is extremely important that those who are appointed to certain positions in public organizations like the police service exhibit professionalism. This level of partisanship is intolerable, and that senior police officer has no business remaining in office. Indeed, he has made his continuous stay in the Ghana Police Service untenable, because you cannot have this sort of mindset. How are we, members of the NDC, expected to deal with him if he happens to be in charge of anything that remotely resembles electoral efforts? How is the general public supposed to view? Indeed, how are his subordinates going to view him going forward? I'm sure they may know where he stands politically, but the overt expression of it in the manner that he did in this tip significantly undermines his status in the eyes of all those who have to work under him. How is he going to relate with his colleagues? How indeed is he going to relate to the IGP? Can he look the IGP in the face going forward after this thing has become public? So it's a serious national security matter. And the sort of laxity we are seeing on the part of government is not acceptable. And again, it is in keeping with the conduct of this government. You see, to the extent that anything is in their favor, they do not care. And Samson, it is important to the extent that it also highlights the politicization and weakening of state institutions that we in the NDC have been hammering upon. Look, the police service, the judiciary, the electoral commission, otherwise independent state organizations, all of them have come under a certain level of attack under this government. And it is coming together in a way that has completely eroded the confidence that people have in these institutions. If you have a police service that is politicized, you have an electoral commission to which rabid MPP fanatics have been appointed to. If you have,
that's the point.
Yes,
that's the point.
Yeah.
Presidents do not appoint, like we have heard, their enemies into these offices when the power is with them to appoint. You disagree with Damboche because what? Police, IGPs have influenced elections before. You disagree with him because what? Police, IGPs, don't they is it lobby for these jobs?
No.
And does it not show always that they must belong to a party?
No,
a party must be comfortable with them before they are appointed.
Unlike, I'm sure even in your private organization.
This may have played out in the public.
Samson,
but is that not the secret, the obvious thing?
Samson, even here at Multimedia, I'm sure that there are minimum standards that are required of you when you are appointed to a certain position. You are expected to conduct yourself in a certain manner. Professionalism is the key. In a public organization, you are working on behalf of the state, not a political organization. So anybody who occupies a certain position must exhibit a certain level of professionalism and conduct. Otherwise, he's not fit for that office. I beg your pardon. And then there are institutions that are supposed to be independent. You see, their independence is not a fluke. Some of them are even constitutional. They are required to be independent. What does that independent mean? Why are they required to be independent? Because they play roles. They play roles that ensure that they do things that must be acceptable
the IGP's office
to the larger.
The IGP's office is not independent.
No.
In fact, there has been some advocacy earlier, particularly by Dr. ACP Agbojo, that there should be the police IGP must be appointed through an independent process.
Yes,
we are not there. It is the president.
When I say
yes,
but the president is not supposed to appoint a partisan stooge to become IGP. There are positions that partisans can occupy. One of them is not the IGP's office. He is a professional police officer. You see, he is supposed to conduct his affairs in a manner that meets certain standards. And when I say I disagree with Damboche, the reason is that the IGP is the one who supervises the security arrangements for elections. You see, even when they have military support, I'm sure you are aware that the military must operate under the command of the Ghana Police Service or whichever officer is in charge.
That's right.
So if the man is supervising the deployments, is supervising the operational arrangements in terms of security for an election, and he is aligned, what sort of arrangements will he make? What confidence will he inspire in all the parties that are contesting, apart from the ruling party?
What?
So it is absolutely...
The police will make sure at a place where, for example, a party has overwhelming numbers, they will ensure that the vote is suppressed there.
Look,
so that people don't come out.
Samson, you have covered elections extensively. If there are thugs who come to a police station to misconduct themselves, and the police is minded to snuff out their danger, if you have a professional IGP, they will do so. If you have an IGP who is partisan, first of all, he may even be privy to the plot to use these thugs, and so will turn a blind eye. The IGP can be used to frustrate opposing parties. Indeed, I recall an incident as far back as 2006 at Ofinso, where Nia Masana Mwale, at the time, I think you were still with Joy FM. You recall that incident? At the start of the election, Nia Masana Mwale, merely because he inquired to know about some process, was removed by the police from the police station. So we were left unprotected in terms of our interests as a party in that police station for several hours. And that is what a biased police outfit can do to you.
In 2006 that you mentioned, there was a by-election in Asawase.
Yes.
I blew the whistle on the foreign ballot boxes that were stuffed in a pickup truck.
Exactly.
The police impounded it.
Yeah, so that...
Even though I was beaten by the soldiers.
Well, that is unfortunate. But at the time, that would have been the work of a police outfit that was professional. They were simply committed to maintain law and order. But there have been instances where the police has turned a blind eye. I have maintained that, you see, the Ayo Aso West Wagon incident was not acceptable, not just because it was done by MPP tax, but it was not acceptable because they basically had no challenge from the police establishment. And I'm saying that there's nobody who can convince me that these ragtag of bandits will be a match for the police service if they were determined to confront them. Therefore, so that is what you will have.
Therefore, this leaked tape. What should happen to it?
So, number one, it must be looked into. There is talk about finding out its authenticity. I don't think that anybody who listens to that tape will be in doubt about its authenticity, given how clear it is and what is being said and all that. So, the officer involved must be identified. When he is identified, I think he has done enough to compromise his office. So his stay is no longer tenable. He must leave the police service. If he wants to go and become an MPP propagandist, he is free to do so. But that is after he has left the police service. Number three.
That officer is not alone.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Don't you hear other officers?
It does not matter. Anybody
have come to pave the way for him.
What I'm saying is that anybody
who is tell all the bad things that this IGP represents, and
you see, I'm saying that as for the bits about the internal office politics, I can live with. It is not unusual that people will want to replace you just for your position. Okay. That I can live with. If they want an IGP removed, that is a separate issue from the reasons. It is the political reasons that they espouse that worry me. Because I don't think that anybody can make himself IGP. So to become IGP, you have to meet certain requirements.
Okay, so you say he must be removed, and then
he must be removed. Anybody also involved in any form or shape in terms of plotting anything sinister about the 2024 election. Because indeed, you hear him also say that there are ways and means in elections, which means, in fact, it validates the point I'm making, that anybody occupying such a position because he is partisan can compromise that position to favor one party.
Okay. And
also, we must instill further confidence in the public by carrying out reforms in terms of the way that these appointments are made. And that is where ACP Agozo's point comes in. You see, we must reform the way we do things. And perhaps we need to have a larger conversation about how independent or quasi-independent bodies or bodies that are supposed to operate independent of the executive or other arms of government, first of all, get their leadership and how they conduct themselves over the years. And it is a conversation that has been going on, but nobody appears to be paying attention. Indeed, as for President Mahama, and I can speak for him, he has made it clear. I'm sure you heard him when he launched his campaign in Ho for the flybyship slot of the NDC, that he would like to see far-reaching reforms in the way that public institutions carry out their activities. And I'm sure even the appointment of leaders is one of the things that will come under scrutiny when he indeed gets elected as president of this country. But nobody can swat aside the issues.
Let's hear from Richard. Let's hear from Richard too.